Hello, I'm Jonathan Parker. I'm the Program Director for Politics Degrees here at Keele University. In this video, I'm going to talk about the types of preparation you need to do to get ready for your degree when you arrive here in the fall, and give you some guide to things you might be doing over the summer to prepare. The most common question I tend to get from students is what sort of background do they need to do politics? Many students will have done a A-level in government and politics. It is absolutely not required. Only about half of our students have done that. So again, half of our students will not have had any formal training in politics. And so this video will give you a sense of things you might do over the summer or during lockdown if you've got some free time to try to prepare yourself for this degree. Right, the first thing I tell students is that there's no particular reading they have to do. There is no curriculum, there is no specific types of readings I want you to have before you arrive here. Again, many courses will have textbooks. We certainly have required readings that we'll do in the first year. I don't want you to read those yet. Those are much more fun to do if you have a group of people who are discussing them at the same time. And so what I would like you to do this summer is to try to develop your interest in politics and to feel out exactly what you like and to deepen your background. So in essence, keep up with current events, see what's happening in the world, what types of things are you interested in, make sure you're well informed and ready to go. Secondly, explore your particular interests. Lots of us have different types of things that we specialize in. You could tell from the accent, maybe I'm American. I teach American politics here at Keele. That is what I specialize in. And so again, many of my interests are going to be along the lines of what's happening in the United States. Again, if you have an interest like that, pursue it. If you like French politics, do that. If you like Russian politics, that's fine. If you prefer international relations or international development, again, try to find sources that will help you develop your background in that interest. Finally, let your curiosity drive you. Again, politics is a hugely wide open field. You can study just about anything you like. And again, by the time you get to the third year, you'll be able to develop your own curriculum. You'll choose your own dissertation topic, and you'll be able to do your own subject for an entire year. So again, you need to drive these interests and figure out what you want to do and make sure your degree fits with that. If you want to keep up with news sources, then here's a good list of places you can start. Again, this is not definitive. This is not the be-all and end-all list of news. But again, these are the types of things that I will look at on a regular basis to try to keep up with what's happening. Now, I'll go with number one. I've got The Guardian on there. The main reason for that is not because I'm left-wing and an academic. It's because The Guardian does not have a paywall. First of all, it's owned by a nonprofit trust, and so it is not a profit-making entity. Therefore, it does not have to have a paywall. And so you can get access to all of the Guardian's content for free if you need to. All the other sources have some sort of limitations in terms of that. You can only download a certain number of articles, or some like the Telegraph may require you to have some sort of subscription to get any access. So again, try these out as you wish. If you find that it's something you like, then you might want to get a subscription to it. But again, you can feel your way through these and get a sense for what types of sources you like. I've developed these over a period of time. I like to have a range of sources. They tend to be a little bit heavy on the American side, but again, you can develop your own, and this is a good place to start. One of the really exciting aspects of getting politics information these days is podcasts, and particularly in the year of lockdown, when you've got lots of time and you've got access to the internet, you can get loads of podcasts about all sorts of subjects. And again, this is not a definitive list. These are just the ones that I listen to on a regular basis to try to keep up. Talking Politics in particular is done out of Cambridge. It's an extremely good introduction to the field, and it gives you a sense of what the different topics are that might be, and they're a fantastic discussion around that. Slate Political Gabfest, this is more American. If you're into American politics or want a nice sort of breezy approach, an opinionated approach to what's happening in politics today, that's a great one to start with. The Guardian Politics Weekly is an excellent roundup of what's happening in British politics. Chopper's Politics comes out of the Telegraph. Again, if you are more conservative, then that might be more to your taste. 538, this is Nate Silver's site that he runs in the United States. And again, it's fantastic for electoral politics. He occasionally talks about Britain and Europe. He really doesn't know what he's talking about there, so don't count on it for a whole lot of European sources. But it's excellent for issues of voting and particularly politics in the United States. It gives you some really in-depth looks at what's happening. And then finally, More or Less, which is a fantastic podcast here from the BBC. about how we measure what's happening in the world. And again, it's not about math. People keep thinking it's about mathematics. It's not. It's about how we measure things and the process by which we go to do this sort of thing. It's a fantastic introduction to the social science method. How do we go about looking at things? How do we understand exactly what we're looking at? And the way in which you measure something is really important for how you conceive of it and what you think of as a problem in the society today. So have a look at those if you like, find your own. Again, there are so many podcasts out there. I'm sure you'll find something that fits your tastes. General books on politics. Again, these are titles that I've asked around all the different staff members at the politics department at Keele. And these are the titles we all pretty much agree are fantastic starts. If you're interested in politics, you want to find out more, they're good places to go. The Political Animal is of course British. All Out War by Tim Shipman is about Brexit. If you're into American politics and Trump in particular, American Carnage is the title everyone's talking about right now. If you're more interested in notions of why people disagree and populism and political argument, then The Righteous Mind is a good place to start with that. And then general treatise on politics, Andrew Gamble's Politics Why It Matters is a great place to go for that. So again, these are just nice titles you might want to try out if you want to get into the subject of politics. Right, I warned you that I'm obsessed with American politics, and that's no bad thing. So if you're really into American subjects, if you did government politics and you did lots of American content, or if you did a history A-level and you've done a lot of studies in the Cold War and you'd like to explore more about the United States, here are some fantastic titles to get you started. Hillbilly Elegy is really about the left behind parts of the population. It's an absolutely fantastic book about what globalization has done to society and the people who get left behind in that. The Nine is an absolutely superb narrative about how the Supreme Court operates in the United States. It gives you lots of behind the scenes stories, and it was a great introduction to that branch of government. The Best and the Brightest by David Halberstam is about Vietnam, essentially. It's one of the most prominent investigative journalistic pieces that, again, people reach to again and again if they want to understand that conflict. Again, American Carnage, if you want to understand Trump, this is the title everyone's talking about. It's a great place to go. Parting the Waters. This is probably one of the most prominent books on civil rights in the United States. I was trying to come up with one good book on civil rights, and there are just so many, it's hard to do, but this is probably the most famous. Again, it's about the rise of Martin Luther King in his career. And actually, there are 3 titles in the series, and they're absolutely huge doorstop books. So I would just start with the first one and see how you get on with it. If you like it, then there are 2 more, and you can keep going. And then finally, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Again, this is looking at the civil rights period from a different viewpoint. And it's just an absolutely fantastic book. Even if you don't like politics, I would say this is one of the best books you should be putting on your must-read list. And finally, if you want a bright and breezy introduction to American society and get some sense of American values with a nice contrast with Britain, Made in America is a superb title for that. Bill Bryson is one of these transatlantic people who has roots in both the United States and in the UK. And has been bouncing back and forth ever since, and is just an excellent observer of politics and society in both countries. Right, political philosophy. I will admit at the outset, this is not my area of expertise. I am not a theorist. So political philosophy, again, these are the types of books that all the staff are using, not just the political theorists. And again, when you come into the first year, we will certainly be teaching you about Leviathan, the 2 treaties of government, the social contract, and again, works like that will absolutely suit you well if you want to get into this topic. Again, this list tends to have a bit of an American bent to it. I've got the Federalist Papers on there. That is the absolutely most important piece of political theory you could ever read about the United States. But it's pretty heavy going if you're not actually doing a course in American government. So I would suggest starting with Democracy in America as a much more approachable book. On Liberty by John Stuart Mill, again, is a huge important title in terms of political theory and notions of political values. Common Sense by Tom Paine, again, is a fantastic piece. You will have studied this if you studied the American Revolution. This is the book that kicked off the movement for independence in the United States. Again, the Americans were rebelling at the time, and they certainly were unhappy with the British government, but most of the country was still quite happy having a monarchy. This is the book that put a stake through the heart of that. And so it's probably one of the most read books in American history. It's an absolutely superbly written, entertaining piece of history that you can go into. And then more classic works of political philosophy, The Republic by Plato and The Prince by Machiavelli, which are fantastic introductions to politics and the problems of how you operate government efficiently, and whether you can come up with notions of political rules and rules of thumb that can actually work through time. Political fiction, right? We couldn't get anyone to agree on these, and so again, there's a lot of American stuff in here. So again, 1984. If you haven't read it yet, you really ought to have a look. This is something that everyone should have read. American Pastoral, The Corrections, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Invisible Man are all books about certain periods of time and certain groups within the United States. And so they're fantastic for diving into these particular populations, the worries that people had at certain times, and getting a sense of political history and the political values that were driving these events at these times. Films. I mean, it seemed crazy not to put some pop culture on here. Everyone's locked up. Everyone's watching either film or television on an almost daily basis at this stage. So if you're stuck with your family and someone's hunting around on Netflix or Amazon Prime to find something to show, again, these titles are just a nice place to start for some of these topics. Again, there's so much out there. You can hunt these down on your own, or you can find something that just fits with what your interests are. Television. If I'm going to put film on, I'm going to have to put television on, because some of the best writing about politics and pop culture is done on television, particularly in the United States, where there's been a long history of this, but also in the UK. I mean, some of the classic pieces of work come out of the British broadcasting. So again, I would say the best of these are Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. They are some of the funniest TV programs you could ever watch about politics. Following on like that, The West Wing, if you're feeling really nostalgic and want to think of the American presidency as something that people used to look up to and have some respect for, okay, have a nice dive into history and look at that sort of fictional fantasy. The thick of it is again a much less positive view of politics. It's absolutely riveting to watch and absolutely hysterical. Veep again follows on similar lines, but in the U.S. The Wire is an absolutely superb series about inner city Baltimore, and again the way in which cities operate in the United States, the way in which you get inequalities and the politics of that. On a more positive side, Parks and Recreation gives you a notion of how important local government is to Americans, the place it plays in American political thought. And again, it's just a nice view of how people think of politics in the US pre-coronavirus. The Americans, again, is more interesting as a tale because it's based on reality. These were some Russian sleeper agents who were masquerading as American citizens, and this was a tale that was just completely fictionalized out of that actual historical event, but is very, very fun television to watch. And then finally, The Handmaid's Tale, which is a very dystopian view of feminist politics and the place of women in society, and it seems more and more relevant even as each day that we go on. Right. I hope this set of lists was helpful to you. Again, they're just suggestions. Please, cast around, find your own stuff. If you find anything particularly good, you can contact me and tell me, and I can maybe put it on the list. And if you want to keep up with us at Keele, again, these particular social media sites will give you some contact with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the fall. Goodbye.